Yeah, hi again. It's me, Buck. There was a time in my life when I was involved with the occult. I was in it up to here. I had left the Catholic Church, but I believed in God. And like I've alluded to in a couple of my other stories, I was interested in the truth, but I believed in miracles. And I believed that we were capable of much more. So I started searching. I lived in San Jose, which was kind of the home of the Rosicrucians, and they have a big museum there, or they did. I haven't been there in many, many years. Um, anyway, I was reading the want ads. I don't know what I was looking for now, but I came across this ad that said, "Develop your psychic abilities. Call Joy at BR 543 or whatever." So I called Joy, primarily because I was lonely. I was a bachelor father, had no girlfriend, no adult friends at all to speak of, and I just wanted to get with people. So I called Joy, and she told me that they had a meeting, and I think it was on Tuesday evenings. So on Tuesday evening, I started going to Joy's, and I'd been reading books on the occult, and read a lot of them, and anyway, I got involved up here. I got involved so deeply. I was practicing witchcraft, but I believed in Jesus, okay? This gets a little weird. I believed in Jesus, I believed in God, and so some of these witchcraft rituals, you were supposed to do things like turn the cross upside down. Well, I wasn't going to do that. And so anyway, I used the rituals and I did everything, but I would not defile the cross, and I wouldn't say the Lord's Prayer backwards or anything like that. There's no way to describe the havoc that was happening in my life at that time. Things happened. I learned things. But they weren't working out the way that I wanted, probably because I refused to defile the name of Jesus. I became so confused. And I didn't know it then. It was my wife told me, Sylvia, she said, you were seeking truth. Well, I was. And she called me a truth seeker, and I was. Anyway, because of all this ritualistic stuff that I was doing, I became so depressed. There's no way to describe my depression. I got morbidly depressed, and I think I was having physical problems anyway, because I began to discover there was a pattern to my depression. If I had a day or a week where everything was going good, and then I got on a euphoric high without drugs, where I got really high and I thought I could whip the world at anything, I learned after time that I was in for a big crash, and I would get depressed, morbidly depressed. In one of these, I also learned that when I was depressed, part of it was loneliness, I have to confess it, it's one of the biggest killers. I discovered that if I went to the Eastridge Mall in San Jose, where there were people, malls in those days used to be really popular, and they were crowded, and I could go there, and just being with people raised my spirits. Now, my kids didn't know that I was having a problem like this. They were all in school. I was a salesman and making a living, but not a good one. And anyway, one day, I got so depressed. I thought, well, I need to go to Eastridge. And I went to Eastridge. But this time it didn't work. It seemed like everybody would ignore me. Usually when I went there, I'd get a smile or something from somebody, and it would lift my spirits. But this time, it didn't work. It seemed like everyone was wrapped up in their own little world. While I was getting there, I became walking through the mall. I got more and more depressed. And finally, I said, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to go home, take my shotgun, put it here, and pull the trigger. I headed for the exit. My mind was made up. I headed for the exit, and I began to pray as I was going out. And I remember my prayer. I said, God, I'm sorry to be such a disappointment to you, but I can't take any more. Sorry about that. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, I was in a part of the mall where there was nobody. I was getting close to the exit. And suddenly 2 hands grabbed me by the shoulders and spun me around. There was nobody near me. But in mid-step, my foot was, one foot was up in the air, and I was just turned around. And I remember it shook me up. And I kind of chortled and said something like, okay, if I'm not supposed to commit suicide, I won't. And those are the words I said. I remember them. Okay, if I'm not supposed to commit suicide, I won't. I went back into the mall, and I was on the 2nd level. And I walked in for quite a ways, and I don't remember what the layout of the mall was anymore. But I do remember that I walked over to a handrail, and I looked down at the main deck below, and there was a whole bunch of people gathered. And I mean, these people were dressed in costumes, of dance-type costumes. Some of them were wearing ballets, performers wearing tutus, and there were dancers in tights. And it seemed like, I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I guess it seemed like all the dance studios in the Bay Area were putting on a display there. And I mean, there were people gathered from all ages and all over the Bay Area, many studios represented, and they put on this display. And I stood there. There was young kids, 2, maybe 3 years old, dressed in little tutus and putting on their little amateur performances. And then there was guys who were probably my age now, and men and women, and the old pros, and they were so slick and so. Anyway, long story short, I watched for at least an hour, maybe 2, and I was so enthralled watching these people do their very best that my dark mood disappeared. And I went home. I was completely different. Obviously, I didn't commit suicide. I wouldn't be here right now, would I? The thing about this thing about suicide was I didn't give a single thought to what it would do to my kids if they came home and found their dad with his brains all over the wall. For years it bothered me. I thought, why was I prevented from committing suicide when so many others have? And I pondered that question for years. And then one day, I understood the answer. Part of it was confusion, spiritual confusion. That was part of what was causing my funk. I was confused, looking for God. The second thing was, I was praying as I was headed for the door. And in that prayer, I realized I didn't blame anybody. I took all the blame on myself. I apologized to God for being such a disappointment. And I do believe That's why I was stopped. I really believe that. I stayed wrapped up in the occult until something else rather miraculous happened. My middle child, Lloyd, one day he walked into my room, and in my room I had an altar, my bedroom. I had a big bedroom, and in my room I had an altar set up. It had black velvet on the top, had candles, brown candles, not white, and it had a cross, but in the upright position. That's where I performed all the rituals that I was doing. Rituals, by the way, that were to dominate people, put me in charge, and they were killing me. They were backfiring. My son, Lloyd, walked into my room, got about a foot into it, turned on his heels, and he says, "Dad, your room gives me the creeps." And he walked out. It was like something snapped in my mind. The closest that I can come to understanding or explain what happened. In the Bible, it talks about when Jesus died on the cross, the veil in the sanctuary was torn in two. In the temple was ripped asunder. That's what it was like. That it happened in my mind. Suddenly there was this rip, and I was able to see clearly what I was doing wrong. And that was the end of my association with the occult. I left that world. I had thousands of dollars worth of books. And my kids and I sat down that evening and we tore up all these books on occultism and witchcraft and rituals and all that stuff. I had a crystal ball. It was a small one. It was about that big around. And I took it out. I didn't want anybody to get it. And I took it out on the asphalt, and as hard as I could, I threw it down to the ground, and it bounced higher in my head. It was like a basketball. It didn't break, chipped it a little. No matter what I did, I couldn't break that crystal ball. Finally, I just threw it in the Dempsey dumpster. I ran from the occult world, and I began to pray, "God, show me the truth." And my prayer was, "God, you show me the truth. Lead me into the truth." I don't want to learn from men because men don't know the truth. They teach what they believe. They teach their ism. They teach where they're coming from, whether it's right or wrong. Teach me the truth. And that was the start of what I call the kindred spirit connection. And it was what changed my life. Now I'm going to say this, close with this. Did I find the truth? Do I know what the truth is? I would never tell you that I, Buck Tohill, know what the truth is, because the truth is so much bigger than you and I can ever comprehend. But I will say this: if you're a loving person, if you're a kind person, if you give of yourself to others, if you believe in God and come to Him, and you don't believe in the ism of any church, but the correctness, the truth, and the reality of God the Father, then you, my friend, are on the path. And that, I feel fairly confident to say, is the truth. It's been a joy talking to you, and I hope you got something out of this and it touched you right here in the heart. See you later.